All right. So, excuse me. In chapter 9, what we're going to talk about is the financial reporting. We've been talking about data. We talk about the accounting processes, how accounting information system deal with the sales and collection, right? We also look into the purchase, right, and the payment processes, and we understand how accounting data are modeled, but we haven't looked into how accounting information are reported, okay, in the end. Accounting information, as we understand now, is that every accounting transactions, big or small, with an appropriate accounting information system, it should be able to collect those information into the computer, and as we understand, it's most likely that to put under some kind of database with tables, right? And we use the entity relationship diagram tool to define those relationships. And from that, we understand the business rules and implement those business rules into the accounting information system. So the accounting information system can use to process those raw accounting data, right, into different uses, right? So, but how those information are presented on the other end, right, is what we're going to talk about today. So there are a lot of problems when it talking about presenting the accounting information system. Okay, if we look at the traditional financial statement, and as you know, the basic sets of accounting financial information system, the balance sheet, right, the income statement, right, the cash flow, right, all these basic set of accounting information reports, they serve a specific purpose. So let's talk about how these traditional financial statements came about. So if we think about balance sheet, right, and the income statement, they serve a very different purpose. When it comes to balance sheet, right, we're looking at company, right, a particular company at a point of time. Okay, so like for example, if I were to find, let's say Anna here. So I look at Anna and ask Anna the question, Anna, how much money do you have now? So I'm asking Anna particular information, right, with respect to her financial standing right now at this point of time. Okay, that's what the balance sheet is about. At a given point of time, right, what your financial standing is at. Right? But if I ask another question to Anna, say, Anna, how much money did you make last week? Right? The information I'm trying to find information that is her financial activities for during a period of time, right? So it's quite different. You look at balance sheet, you look at, at the point of time, okay, how wealthy were you last year, right? The same day last year. That's the same thing. We are trying to find the financial information about company at the point of time, right? But if we look at income statement, that's another kind of the financial information. You look at things that for a given period of time. Oh, the income statement for the month, the income statement for last year, the income statement for last quarter. Always look at things for a period of time. So that's what we know of the traditional financial statements, that there are some statements we look at the company's financial standing at any given point in time. Okay, and there are also financial statements that we look at the company's performance during a given period of time. So starting from these two financial statements, if we look at how traditional accounting works, it works like this. Okay, so for example, this here. Okay, so XYZ Arts Organization financial statement, accrual method, fiscal year July 1st, 2004 to July 30th, to June 30th, 2005. And you see there's income and expenses, and they give you an ending balance. So we're looking at some kind of income statement type of financial output. Then the question really is, if we are looking at a financial measure at a given point of time, right, that means we have to summarize our entire company's account, right? Okay, what do we have in inventory? Okay, what do we have in our bank? What do we have in respect to our equipment? What do we have in returns to our liabilities? As you can think from this perspective, it is a time-consuming process, right? There's so many accounts, so many activities that we have to look at in order to come up a report that can give our financial statement user at any given point of time, whether they are covered, say, okay, given the point of time in December, 2019, what our financial statement look like? Or given the information that what happens last month, right? What our entire month income is gonna look like. So it doesn't really matter which type of accounting statement that we look at. We must understand that all these accounts you see in this traditional financial statement, how we look at it, formatted this way, you see, each one of them, city support, county support, tenancy art commission, corporate contributions, fees, and classes, these all come from myriads of accounts, right? And that is happening day in, day out. So when we put together a accounting information system, we understand that these come from accumulation of accounting transactions, right? Okay, and all these accumulation of accounting information have to be put together, right? And then summarized and then balanced, and in the end show up in the financial report. So if we look at financial statement, traditional one, we know there are problems like what? Okay, first, it can be a very time-consuming process, right? Because now we are looking at potentially work with many accountants, many departments, right, to obtain those data. And not only obtain those data, we have to balance it to make sure that it has no problem, right? And then we have to work with very likely a group of accountants to put all this number together, right? So because it's a manual process, it require a lot of coordination, a lot of different people touching those numbers. So it's prone to manipulations and error, right? In the old traditional format, if the accounting information is presented on a piece of paper, it's also very difficult to audit, right? So from an auditor's perspective, when you look at the statement like this, right? Okay. Now, what's happening with these fees and classes? Why is 39,828, right? Why is that? You have to take a look at it and perhaps pool, all the journal entries and all the receipts that are associated with these fees and classes, right? And it's again, because the nature of it is being on piece of paper, right? It is difficult for an auditor to trace all these accounts, to get all the information there, right? It's a manual process. A lot of times auditors have to be physically on site, right? In order to perform the audit of any organization, right? Because they have to physically see where the records are, because it was not on any computer medium, right? So same thing here, related to difficult audit is how difficult it is to find details, about an account. And then the last one is the lack of semantic meaning, right? These reports cannot be understood by any computer program if it's on a piece of paper. Even if you think, oh yeah, we can just scan it, right? And the OCR, the text, turn these information on the piece of paper into some kind of PDF, into text that you can copy and paste. But what you get is only what we call the computerized text, right? And computerized text, the program may understand, oh, 1 is 1, but it does not understand that city support is 19,500. That's the semantic meaning of it, right? When the computer look at this number 52004. The computer only understands it is as a number of 52004, but does not really understand this is actually a beginning balance of this July 1st, 2004 to June 30th, 2005, and belong to the XYZR organization. Okay, so that's what we're talking about, the semantic meaning, okay, of a number. So as we can see, there are quite a few issues when we talk about the traditional financial statement. So based on what we learned in this class, so we know that the accounting information system can potentially do a lot of good, right, in this respect, right? So that we can use the computer to prepare this statement to collect those numbers, right? So to reduce the potential for human error, like transcription error, that some people have ugly handwritings, the journal entry is not readable, things like that. So that comes what we call the Excel financial statement. Okay, so companies starting from the late 80s, right? When the Lotus Note, Lotus 123, okay, in the Windows 3.1 days in the late 80s, right? And the accounting functions start to switch from pen and paper to computers, right? Because we recognize the inefficiencies of how the accounting process works in the traditional pen and paper environment. So we start using Excels. And to put together reports like this, there are several benefits that we find. Like, for example, most of the time when you get the financial statement, an important feature of the financial statement is to be able to compare information from the last period. So you would probably put for example, you have an income statement, right? And you put the income statement of this year over here, and usually you will put the last year's income statement in the next column so you can compare the information side by side. It's fairly easy to do in an Excel environment. Also, the Excel allow us to calculate the fields, right? Calculate the cells very easily to allow us to assign some kind of formula, right? So the certain things that we don't need to calculate it by hand compared to the pen and paper format. In Excel, a lot of information can be calculated in the computer and built in the cell, okay, each Excel cell. And then not only that, we can reference the number. Like, for example, the research and development, we can reference this particular cell to other spreadsheet, right? So we are not copying information by hand. We are referencing the number from other Excel spreadsheet to this over here. So when this number change in other Excel spreadsheet, this number would be, immediately formatted. So they bring about a lot of benefit to the Excel financial statement compared to the traditional pen and paper format. But the problem is that they still share many similar problems with the traditional financial statement, right? In a different sense, it's still very prone to manipulation and error. Why? Because how it uses the formula, how it round up the numbers or round down the numbers, okay? Because most of the time when we use Excel spreadsheet, right, we look at this. Rarely do we look into the formulas, how the formula are written, or rarely do we realize that the formula perhaps has been modified by someone, changed by someone, right? Okay, so we take these numbers for granted most of the time when we're using Excel, right? And also, in Excel, the problem is that it lacks a presentation standard, okay? On the Excel, because of how easy it is to present the data and how to structure it. So everybody, if I give you a task to make an income statement, you will come up with a slightly different structure, okay? And those slightly different structure will incorporate different type of formulas. So again, that when it comes to Excel financial statement, right, it still have a lot of problems. And also at the very end, Does it solve the problem that the statement lack of semantic meaning? It still has this very similar problem. The number here, I say 28571, under the Excel environment, computer still only understand this is a computerized numeric number, but does not understand this is actually total revenue of this period and belongs to what company, right? And in whatever unit, right? This is in reference to this number. So what we're realizing right now, and what I keep emphasizing over and over, is that when we look at the number on any financial statement, right? We know that this number has a story, right? We know that this number is actually a compilation of many, many, many accounting transactions in order to come to this number that we see, right, on the Excel or on the traditional financial statement. And this number has many, what we call the side semantic meanings, have a lot of metadata associated with this, any number here, right? So if we look at this 628, right, and then if I ask you what this number is about, you'll be able to say, oh, this is actually research and development. Not only that, you will be able to tell me that this is 13 weeks result ending 2011, June 25th. And you also can tell me that this number unit is in US dollars and in the measurement is millions of dollars. And you can be able to tell me, oh, this is actually Google's financial results, right? So we know that as a human being, that we are able to get a lot of information looking at the number and figure out what it means. But the computer is not like that, right? Computers, if you look at the Excel financial statement, the computer can only understand that this is a 628. It may be able to understand that there's a formula, right, associated with this 628. And not only that, the worst thing about Excel or in the Excel environment is it commonly incorporates formula and macros, right? Or reference to other cell that we think is a convenience. But the problem is that these formula, macros, and it may not work if the file are exchanged in a larger network. Like for example, if you reference this 628 from another document, another cell, or another location, if that file is not available, then this this field may show as an invalid field that when it calculated, it will calculate as a 0, right? You see? So these kind of errors sometimes that we did not even realize is happening if we transmit this file to another location, sharing this file in a large network. And if you imagine a very, very large corporation, when there are many people using Excels, and every one of them use certain extent of formula to calculate the result and certain extent of reference the number from here and there. And then if you put all these people's report together and to come up with the financial statement, the problem of those errors is still very rampant. And there are cases that I've seen that there are so many errors with regards to people's Excel financial statement. You just literally amazed how the company can put together a financial statement that with so many errors and some people that don't really know what they're doing with Excel. But that's that environment. So if we were to think, now how can we solve this problem, right? For example, if you are, let's say, regulatory agencies, and you realize what we will just seen so far, wow, even with computers, right? But with so many different kind of problems here and there, right? With Excel, with the manipulation, and then when we ask company, any public firms to submit their financials into let's say SEC or submit the information into IRS, how do we make sure that those numbers are reliable, right? So as the regulators have been pondering the same kind of question that we're thinking about right now, right? Is there any a different way to present the accounting information so it is better? so the computer can understand what is really being presented. So we can look into the detail much easier. So we can have a system, a presentation standard that has a built-in feature to reduce potential errors. So over the years, they finally come up to something, and that's actually very, very important to how we present accounting information nowadays. And the standard is called what we call the XBRL. How many of you heard of XBRL so far? XBRL, raise your hand. Have you heard of XBRL? Yeah. Okay, it's quite unfortunate that although XBRL has become a standard when it comes to transmitting financial information to regulators. Let's say if you are Google, if you work for Apple, right? Every quarter, okay, you have to file information to SEC, and every year you have to file financials to SEC, your 10Ks, your 8Ks, or 10Q, AQs, all those information, right? Those information actually filed in the format we call XBRL, right? Okay, but the problem is that the XBRL is very, very complicated and hard to understand. And for most of the accounting students, they do not even ever see XBRL in work, right? They are busy enough to figure out how to calculate certain things. They don't really get to see how, at the other end, how accounting information are presented. Okay, sorry. Let me get this. Sorry, my phone was ringing. Okay, so XBRL stands for Extensible Business Reporting Language, and this XBRL is based on a format what we call the language called XML. Okay, the XML language. So how many? Probably more people have heard about XML, right? Anybody seen this somewhere? XML. How about HTML? You guys know HTML? Way more people heard HTML. Okay, so when it comes to presenting information over electronic medium, right? The XML is the de facto, almost a standard way of framework to teach the computer how to show different things. And when it comes to show a web page, right? Oh, you see, let's get a web page here. Let's take a look at the San Francisco State University web page. Over here, we see San Francisco State University web page. University update, Black Lives Matter at San Francisco State, and all the information here. Okay, some links that we can go. Wow, there are a lot of links over here, right? And there are news, the header events, join the Gator community, and there's a background picture, right? So when we see information like this, right, what XML or HTML do is to tell the computer, oh, this here is a title, and this here over here, okay, they are links listed in this format, right? So this here, okay, there are this news is a header, an event is a header, the join Gator family, this is a header, right? So what HTML do is to teach the computer that the information, the structure of the information, and the content of the information can be separated, right? Okay, we can structure this differently to make the San Francisco State University appear larger or smaller, okay? Because the content of this web page and the structure of how the information look can be a separate element. So that's how it works at the heart of HTML. And XML is the language that helps us understand, okay, how do we make a language like that? So with this understanding, what we do is we use this type of understanding to produce what we call XBRL, to present financial information. So the XBRL, it gives us a database, okay, that's for various users to let us see, okay, if we want to report financial information in certain way, right? And then we can give it using the XBRL format. And a lot of you still wonder and know exactly what it is and how it works. And we can skip this few slides here. And you can take a look at the textbook if you're interested, but basically these are just some text information. So let's go take a look at this example. So we have a current asset, okay, from our balance sheet, and they give us a bunch of numbers over here. Everything is 10,000, 10,000, 10,000, 10,000, 10,000, 10,000, no, 100,000, 100,000 here, da 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 da. And at the end, they give us a total current asset total to 1 million. Okay. So what we do not understand is if we, by looking at this using a manual format, just on a piece of paper, all these numbers are 100,000. Well, what are they? We don't know. If we use the Excel, the same problem, right, appears. We don't know. So what XBRL does, okay, is give this information a tag, to tag it. So if you, how many of you use Instagram or what's the other one? Twitter, right? So when you post something on Instagram, when you tweet something, you can give it a tag, right? To categorize the information somehow, right? So the other end on the Instagram, the computer, they understand, oh, okay, there's a new information coming in, and it's tagged as funny or tagged as as not suitable for work, things like that. So when it comes to XBRL, it's the same idea. Can we tag this information to give it a bit more meaning? So this is what it does. Like for example, over here, even though we only see this 100,000 over here, but we are able to tag it with different information. Okay, so IFRS, okay, we understand now this is the information is presented in the IFRS standard, and this is under the classification asset held sell, okay, the reference over here, and the unit is euro, and decimal point is 0, and close this tag. So as you can see here, this is the way what we're referring to as tagging the information, okay, with this 100,000. So from the computer's perspective, when it read this and see this 100,000, it can put that 100,000 here, but the computer are able to understand what this 100,000 mean, okay, because now it is tagged with metadata, with supplemental information. Okay, so if we extend this, how it works, right? Let's do a real exercise. And you can bring up your browser and let's try to do this together, okay, to see how XBRL at work. All right. Let me know when you're ready. When you're ready with your browser, just give me a show of hands. Okay, ready with your browser. So let's go to this link. Let me see if I can. You can just write it down. Let me copy that to the chat window. Okay. So everybody reached this page? The U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. All right. So what we are seeing here is place for filing and forms. And let me see if I can make this bigger. Hold Hold on for a sec. No, I can't. Okay, I'll do it the other way. Okay, display. All right, speaker now. Good, good, good. All right, so put myself over here. All right, so what you can see over here is the US SEC website with the form filing and forms. It says like all companies, foreign and domestic, are required to file registration statement, periodic reports, and other forms electronic through EDGAR. So earlier we discussed, right, how when you submit all this information to the regulator, there must be some kind of standard, right? So the regulator can see, oh, okay, I could certainly file this information, but how do we file it? What format do we follow? Is what we're gonna look at. So if we, let's see, search for companies filing over here. Okay. Okay, commission welcome your feedback. No thanks. Right. So when it comes to searching for company, you can search different names. Like for example, company or font name, ticker symbol, da da da. So let's click this one. Search by. Okay. You can search company name. Like for example, if we want to find out Apple's financial information, APPLE, and we search. And you can see that, whoa, there's so many Apple. Wow. Apple Leslie M, Apple Melissa, Apple Hospitality 5, Apple Alien Victor. I had never realized there's so many company names related to Apple until the point that I seen this. Apple Solar Company, Apple Seeds LLC, Apple Roche. Interesting. There's so many of them. Just happens that I know that Apple is Apple Inc. You see, you can find Apple Inc. over here. See, Apple Incorporated. And they have the CIK number. Let's see if it is indeed the Apple we're looking for. Or One Apple Parkway, Cupertino. Oh yeah, this is the Apple that makes iPhone. And also, there's another way you can find this Apple from over here by their ticker symbol. So we know that Apple's ticker symbol is AAPL, right? And by doing that, we find Apple, right? Also, that's right, if we know that the other one, Microsoft ticker symbol is MSFT, that's search. Wow, that's Microsoft. How about Tesla? Let's find Tesla. See how many Tesla are here. Here, Tesla Group Holdings Pty Ltd, Tesla JPPL LLC, Tesla Life Science, Tesla Inc. And this is probably the Tesla that we like to know. So let's take a look at Tesla here. Okay, you see there are many filings over here. And you see this filing date, June 16th. That's just today. See, today they fire certain things. Okay, the 8K, right? Okay, so the Tesla's 8K is out. Okay, and over here they also filed an 8K. Over here is an 8K. Over here is a 10Q. Over here, see the 10Q quarterly report, right? The 10K over here is the annual report, section 13 and 15, not the section, Okay, so let's say, for example, if we want to find their 10K, by now you guys probably know the 10K is what? The annual report. So if we try to find the 10K, and let's see show all. Okay, search. What is 10K? Search. See? And Edgar will give me all the financial reports since, right, the first 10K they filed back in 2011. Right? So that's when Tesla went public. As soon as they went public, they have to file all these 10Ks every year. So they have been filing 10K since 2011. And so if you want to understand what Tesla has gone through financially, right? How fast they expanded, you just download their annual report and see, right? Their balance sheet. Oh, how at every given year point of time, how did they grow, right? So every year, this and that, right? And no, I'm a fairly conservative investor, so this is one of my biggest regret, didn't get on Tesla's IPO. When in my heart I know this thing will fly, but the other side, the conservative side of me said no. Yeah, the big autos, the big three were just the big Tesla to a pulp. That's back then what I thought. Yeah, that was the biggest mistake. Yeah, but I somehow corrected. I still have some stock in them, but not a lot. Okay, so let's take any one of them. Let's take their over here. This is an amendment. 10K is amendment. Let's take a look at this 10K over here. Document. Right. So 10K, Tesla 10K 2019, December 31st. If we take a look at this, we will see, here, that's their form 10K, Tesla Inc., right? And it will give us a lot of information about Tesla. Let me make it the text bigger. Okay, so have business, their risk factors, their unresolved staff comment, properties. This is the unresolved staff comment is about the SEC investigations at that time over Tesla's the tweets, to go private and all that. It's quite interesting. And so they have like part 1, part 2, market for registrants, comment of equity, and all this. And part 3, director, executive officer, and corporate governance, executive compensation. Okay, all these we are called MD&A, management discussion. Okay, all right, and exhibit financial statement schedules and summary. So if we scroll down quite a bit, you see there are 156 pages of stuff, right? And there are text in it, numbers in it. Over here, there are some financial statements here. Year end December 31st, Tesla consolidated statement of operations. You can see the revenue, see the cost of the revenues, cost of sales, cost of leasing, right? And all this gross profit, operating expenses. So this is the information presented in what we call HTML, right? So the information here, let's see if we look at the source code, right? So the source code given to us is about how this page will be displayed. So same thing, we will see the text here. LI, and then it's UL, it's a P. Okay, so basically tells me it's some things are list item, some things are unordered list, and this is a paragraph. So that's the HTML way. It only mainly concerns with how the information are shown, are displayed, okay, on the computer screen. But that's not what we are interested. What we are interested, if we go back over here, is over the data files here. You start seeing things that we are really interested. See, the XBR taxonomy, extension schema, the XBR extension calculation, right? Okay, the XBRL over here. Extracted XBRL instance document. So what this is that every time you file, as a corporation, file your 10K to the SEC, you file as an XBRL document, and that XBRL document is what we call the XBRL instance. It's an instance of all this data that we give it to you. Very similar to when we discussed in the database concept, right? If we were to look at the instructors table, and the me is just an instance of that instructors table, right? Of that instructors entity. So from the XBRL perspective, it's the same thing. Every time we create a financial statement, an XBRL document, it's called an XBRL instance, okay? And they give us the XBRL instance here. But along with the XBRL instance, what they give us is what we call the taxonomy, right? Okay, how do we define those tags, right? So if we take a look at this Tesla tags, 10K tag here, let's wait for it a little bit for it to load because it's a huge document. So you can see here it's still loading. Oh, slow. Huh. All right, see? Okay, does not have any style information associated with it. The document tree is shown as below. Okay, the style information, what is mean here is that you can style this XML data into some kind of documents, but we don't need to know. Okay, over here, very fast, we can see that information are tagged in a certain way, right? So this is the under the entity tag, we know that this information is here. So if we keep looking down, these are font tag. Okay, let's see some information meaningful. Okay, let's go back over here. Let me see. Let's search some information. 9713. Okay, let me see. Let me find 9713. Okay. Over here, you see. Now, the 9713 that we found on this is actually presented very differently. Say it tells the information is what? US GAAP, property, plants, and equipment, okay, over here. And not only that, it is able to tell us a lot of information about this number, right? And together with this XML, because this XML beginning, it tells us what this information is about, where is it from, what is start period and end period. So for all this information put together, when you see a number in the XML document, right, over here, right, immediately you can ask the computer to identify what this number is about, right? Okay, where is the period coming from, right? And what this number does belong to. So in the XBRL day and age, right, if you are a stockbroker, let's say, right, with using XML or XBRL, you can very, very quickly compare the financial information across many, many different firms. Let's just see Let's compare Tesla, GM, Ford, and their property, plant, and equipment, right? You can use XBRL to pull these numbers like a database very, very quickly because the computer understands where to go, where to find this information, right? Compared to the old way that if it's printed on a piece of paper, you have to flip many, many pages, right? In order to identify that number. So XBRL, in a way, has revolutionized how we present the accounting information system, the accounting information. It also helped the financial statement users that say financial advisors, financial analysts, or even auditors, right? Because you see, if this information is tagged correctly, right, then we are able to find, right, what this information is coming from, okay? So if the entire organization collects accounting data this way, so let's say when we get the transactions from our point of sales system, right, we can already immediately tag that $10 transaction as, let's say, it's a cash transaction, right? It happens on what day, right? It's handled by whichever salesperson, right? It is associated with whatever product, right? So we're able to get a lot of information, okay, just on that, okay, $10 transaction alone. And what the SEC or the company trying to do is we are already using accounting information and the database in a way when we organize accounting information in the business transactions or business operations. Why not just incorporate the XBRL into it? So when an auditor approach your firm, they can just immediately get all the information because all the transactions are tagged, right? And intact in the database, right? So many people would think this way, oh, XBRL will revolutionize how financial information are audited, how financial information are presented, or how financial information are compared, right? But from the accounting perspective, if you think about it, is this really what is happening right now? Think. It's not. Why? Because XBRL, like how I showed you right now, right? It's very, very complicated. Every company, not only you got to hire database specialist, now you have to hire XBRL specialist to structure your company's transaction into some kind of taxonomy to be categorized that then can be used in the XBRL format. And those information have to be incorporated into the company's day-to-day operation, right? It's very complicated work. It's disruptive, and it's a lot of times cost prohibitive for most companies, right? It's taking too much money to add something just to show accounting information. And on top of that, a lot of resistance come from that XBRL actually make a company the operation way too transparent. Right? Transparency is good, but when you're working with external auditors or financial advisors, you don't necessarily want, right, the 100% transparency. Their accountants need a little bit of elbow room to apply the elbow grease. Okay, no, we have to classify this transaction into next month instead of this month. We have to do it this way, we have to do it that way in order to make our income smooth, not just bumpy, things like that. So if we operate in a pure XBRL environment, is that every transaction is so transparent to a point there's no room for manipulation or no room for, let's say, some kind of massage, window dressing, right? So to this day, XBRL is mostly used to give the SEC to file information to the SEC, okay? But as any public company, they are required to file the statements using the XBRL format, Okay, so that's what I want you to understand about XBRL. It's an overview, but do not worry about it because most of the time that when you get into the industry, you will rarely touch XBRL. It's mostly used as a back end, right? That when we already use database and what the XBRL do right now is you would take the number and format it to XBRL and send to SEC. Okay, things has not changed to what the designer has hoped for. That will revolutionize how we organize, present accounting information, even integrated into companies' day-to-day operation. That has not happened, and for the foreseeable future, it is unlikely to happen because it's just way too complicated. So when you have some time, and I would recommend you to try it out, right? To play around with the SEC, the EDGAR platform, because this is the place that you can always find the latest information on any public company because they are always required to file information, right? You see, over here we already seen, right, that Tesla has just filed an 8K. So if you are an avid stockbroker, you probably want to take a look right away. What did they file today? Let's see what did they file today. 8K. Okay, so United States Securities Exchange Commission, Washington D.C. Form 8K current report. Okay, pursuant to the. So what did they find? Okay. Entry into material agreement and Tesla Motors Netherlands BV and Panasonic and Panasonic Corporation North enter into amendment and restatement of the general terms and conditions into bringing Tesla. Okay, so they're doing something with the with their Netherlands division and also Panasonic Corporation. Panasonic makes battery, so it's quite interesting what they are doing with that, with the battery over here. Panasonic invested 30 million in the private placement of Tesla common stock in November 2010. So we're seeing right now is that okay, there are more cooperation between Tesla and Panasonic. And what was just appeared on the news this day? Model S, right? Model S, the extended the range version, 4,000 mile version, they had just a price drop of 5,000. So with all this information coming from you and the 8K they filed to SEC, then you can determine whether the Tesla price is going up or down. And from what I can tell you, based on this information, Tesla's price is going further up, probably 5% in the next week. Now they are 953. You probably will see it drop, rise to about 980 by the end of this week because all this information coming out. Right? It's quite interesting. But if you imagine that you are a professional stockbroker, you literally gotta have all this information feed to you in real time because by law, right? These Tesla, they cannot give this information to other people faster, right? That will breach the law. That will be insider trading, right? And they have to give this information to everybody equally, right? So if you have a tool, right, most of the professional stockbrokers will have that tool. They can tap into this EDGAR in real time, right? So when a company file new report, they can read it right away or use the XBRL engine to take apart that information through that XBRL instance document and analyze it right away using computer text analysis, right? Or use data mining, right? Tools to get that information very quickly and figure out what to do with the company's stock, right? So let's take a 10-minute break, come back 2:30, and we'll get into the data mining, the data analysis part, right, of AIS. I'll see you in a bit. Yeah. Oh, yeah, okay. I forgot to do that. All right, let's come back to class. So how many of you here have taken more than one summer classes? Give me a show of hands. Oh my God. Are you sure? Was it a lot of work? It is, right? Yeah. You know, I know some students transfer from community college, right? And they didn't realize that in the state school, the standard can be a bit higher than community college. And for some community college, from what I've seen, the summer classes are conducted in a way sometimes, let's say just not really, with the students learning in mind. And I just put it that way. So, but for state school, a real university, the summer classes at a certain standard that most of the time you will see we indeed cram 16 weeks of content into a month for the student to do. So taking more than one summer classes can be a daunting task. It really is, right? So I wouldn't be surprised that some of you feel like overwhelmed, and that I told you very early in the beginning, right? You have to commit more than 100%, and and that's why I always said that I have a lot of respect for accounting students, because accounting students have that commitment and dedication to their learning. Other people are partying, beer, go out, and you are just like, bury yourself in books and the exams and studies, and it's a lot of work. But on the flip side of it, right? When you get out from this department, you get an accounting degree, right? Or you are on your path to be a CPA. I think that accounting job is quite stable. Right? Once you get a CPA, your career, the rest of your life pretty much set. Right? There's not much to worry about. Your job actually becomes easier and easier. But for other students, their future is still a lot of uncertainties, and it's it's an exchange, right? Whether you want stability or you are more adventurous. I've actually seen the resumes from other departments, right? So for accounting students, right, we are used to the idea that resumes should follow certain format, right? Look professionally. There's no surprises, on the resume. It's always presented professionally, right? But if you look at other departments, other, more, how do you call that, out there kind of resume, there are resumes with flowers on it, with the colors. Really, I'm serious, with like a resume put together like a sales brochure. Really, I've seen resume like that, literally, and there are scented resume, right? There's all kind of creative resume out there. That's not the accounting resume. We don't do stuff like that at all. But it basically tell you that these days that the people are go out their ways, try to make themselves stand out, right? But the accounting students, the best chance that we have of standing out, it's not through resume, it's not through those shows and splash and this and that. No, it's the best way to show is that you have paid attention to the material that you're studying, right? That, okay, you have taken AIS, not only have you taken AIS, you put together an AIS project, you are able to show in the portfolio, you are able to discuss with the potential employer what you know about AIS, right? Those are what the accounting students is different from other type of students. Okay, so and when I think eventually you will go out there, after getting your degree. And I think a lot of you are graduating the fall semester, right? How many of you are graduating the fall semester? Can you see a show of hands? Fall semester? Okay. And how many of you are graduating the spring semester? That's more. Okay. So with the students that are graduating in the fall semesters, there are a lot of uncertainties that we know. Okay. So we was just consulting with a student, an international student, who's taking 2 summer classes and 6 fall semester courses, so she can graduate earlier. And my best advice is this may not be a good place or time to push yourself into a schedule that will graduate at the end of this year. There are many, many reasons why. Because first happening is what we know about the COVID-19, right? And many employers, they have not get back to the norm or the pattern of their regular operations. And this kind of point of time, they're usually looking at purging the employees instead of hiring the employees. They're more thinking about how do we slim down operation for like more economic uncertainties. They don't want more, they want less, right? So if you are graduating in the fall semester without a solid job offer, you may find yourself on the job market for a longer period of time looking for a job, because at December, we still don't know, right? At this point, who's going to be the next president, and it's going to be a huge impact on the economy. And if you're graduating in December, most likely the best scenario is that you already have the job offer lined up, right, before you graduate, right? So you are not graduating without a job and looking everywhere, right? So it's still purely a personal choice, right? When you want to graduate, but a lot of students are doing is they are considering, right? Okay, why don't I just take this opportunity and take a few more courses, right? To polish my skill set, to make sure I have more toolkits, right, in my boxes, right? So when I eventually get onto the job market, right, and I can be more prepared, more ready, and have a more rounded package to show the employer, right? So if that's the case, think about it. You try to take the fall semester, it's still conducted online courses, most of them, and take that opportunity to really practice doing things online, to get your home, right, to get your room in a special corner of the room set up ready and for online interviews, because a lot of interviews from this point on will be conducted online, most likely, right? So you want to make yourself presented nicely, right, in front of the employers. Make some investment. Let me show you some things here. Do you guys see this? This is my studio light. So that's why my video can look nicer with the proper lighting. And those studio lights are not too expensive, like $40. You can find it on Amazon, right? And plug it in and set up the green screen in the back. Let me show you what my green screen look like. You see, that's basically what I'm teaching in front of. It's just a green screen. So in the software, we can take out the green background, and then I can project the background image and then the slides that I want to show, right? So you may consider this format a bit, because when you're doing an online interview, right, you may want the idea to put your resume in the back, to put the things that you want to highlight in the back. If you want to show your AIS portfolio, you can do it like me. Okay, this is the portfolio that I have done, right? This is the things that we have done. You will make a huge impression on your employer, and the employer will understand right away this guy knows what he or she is trying to do, knows how to do things online appropriately, right? And I can guarantee you, if you do this type of things, even without those scented resume, color resume, resume on pink paper, right? This is much more effective, all right? So it is not a lot of work, really. Just the green screen is very, very cheap. You can just buy a bunch of green, the non-woven piece of fabric, or just go to Amazon to buy a green bed sheet or any color bed sheet, as long as it is colorful, right? And in your Zoom or in other professional software, you are able to define a particular color, right, to be your green screen. It can be a blue screen, it can be a black screen, or whatever color. But the black, if you use black, then if your hair is like me, black, then your hair will be transparent. It's gonna be weird. So don't do that. Okay, so the point of this discussion is that I want to encourage you that to look at this COVID-19 as a chance for you to shine, right? You are a new batch of employees the employers want to get, right? You are just out of university, you are hungry for a job, and you are trained properly, right, for the new challenges. Right? What are the new challenges? Doing things online, right? It's not gonna go away, because now, even if COVID-19 eventually would go away, the firms start realizing that, oh, we don't need the employee to be in our office. We don't need the expensive San Francisco office. We just have the employee work somewhere else, off-site, and then we do things online like this, right? It's gonna be something, right, happen in the future for certain, right? So take this opportunity and do things right? So it is not very expensive to put together the studio light. You get two of them, like I have, is like $80, right? The software to do this is free. It's open source, right? It's called the Open Broadcast Studio, OBS. You can Google it yourself. It's fairly easy to use. Even I can use it. So if I can use it, you guys can use it. There's no excuse that you guys can't. No. So, and then the microphone, you can find it on YouTube. A semi-professional microphone like this, right, that I use. It's about $50. It's very cheap too, right? It will give you much better audio quality than the microphone that you use on your laptop, right? And in the end, the camera, and that's the big expensive one, right? You can use your traditional like point and shoot camera. If this has a HDMI output, you can use that, or you can use your old cell phone, right, to do that, to serve as a camera as well. Or you can use some of those those how do you call that, the little thing that people put on their head, that Hero, whatever, those, yeah, Hero Pro, that can do as well. You say instead of a Hero Pro, like riding a bicycle, you just Hero Pro yourself, right, doing the interview. So take this summer, the rest of the summer, investigate how to do this properly, how to do this nicely. If you want some kind of a setup that how to do things like this, right, I can give you a few pointers and guides if you want to set things up nicely. And okay, I can also give you the template of my slides So if you want to, you put your own slides on a vertical format, a portrait format. For this type of presentation, you can do that. It's much more suitable for, let's say, a landscape format that you're blocking people's view. Okay, so these are the things that you should do before your next interview. You have to do this. Okay, you have to take every opportunity, right, to tell your employer or your potential employer that this COVID-19 and this online, you're just a fish in the water, right? Second, there's no problem. You can do this nicely, right? And if you do that, I guarantee you will find a job. Not only you will find a job, your first job is probably tell the rest of your coworker how to do things as well as you, right? Do things online nicely. And apparently that's what I'm going to do too. I now will have the responsibility to teach what I'm doing to the rest of the school in the summer, how to do appropriate online teaching, right? How to set things up, all this and that. Right. So, okay, so let's think about this, okay, at this juncture of time, right? Don't rush yourself into the market right now. There's no point of doing that, right? There's no point to give you additional stress in this kind of environment, right? The business is worrying, right, about what they're gonna do, so they are less likely to go out there to look for employees. It's not I'm not saying they are not hiring. I'm not saying that. There are still business hiring, but for those businesses that are hiring, they will be very, very competitive. Why? Because there are a lot of people out of a job. They're trying to reinsert themselves into the industry, right? So you will be likely to compete with a lot of people who are even more desperate than you because they've been out of a job for a while, right? Okay, once you start working, one of the biggest concerns that people have is a gap in their employment history. Why were you out of a job for a year? What happened, right? So a lot of people, when they get fired or when they get furloughed and they get this, they don't want a long gap in their career history. So whenever things like this, after economic downturn, the hiring market is crazy, right? There's only a handful of jobs, but a lot of people try to compete against you to get that job. So the best advice I can give to every one of my students is what the skill they will be looking at, they will be looking for in addition to your knowledge in accounting is this. Are you able to do things online, okay, in the group setting effectively? If you can do that, you'll be fine, okay? Right, so that's a little bit of side talk, and I really want you guys to get a feeling of, right? And set up a corner of your room to have a green screen, to be a dedicated area for you to conduct online interview. Right? I think some of you already set it up that way. Each have that, a green screen. Who else has a green screen? Jiaming has one. Thi has one. Okay. Xianghua has one. Okay, quite a few of you already have a green screen set up. That's pretty good. Right. Okay. So let's talk about this chapter. Data analytics and accounting. So this was, right before the COVID-19, the fast-growing field in accounting. Understand data and data analytics. And right now, based on what I'm saying right now, everybody is thinking about online. Everybody is thinking about how to do things. Can you do things, deliver an online presentation, Everybody is thinking about that now, not data analytics. People are thinking about remote working. Okay, how do you conduct audit remotely? That's what people are worrying about right now. So think about it, it's quite interesting. So data analytics. So last hour we kind of gleaned into this subject a little bit, right? So if you say a stockbroker, right? One thing that we know from our looking to Edgar is that you will be able to get information just like any professional stockbroker. That information published to the SEC, right? All their filings, all their major changes, right, in that company, right, and all their major decisions and financial reports, right? You will be able to get that information as fast as anyone else, right? Because the law says that. It's called a fair disclosure, right? As a company, you cannot selectively disclose your financial information to a certain group of people. That would be against the law, right? Because let's say if I buy one share of Tesla stock, I am a de facto Tesla owner, although a very small owner, but I am still owner. An owner deserves certain information, set of information from the company. I have the right to know how my company is operated. So how do I, as the owner, a very small owner of Tesla, get Tesla information is through those financial disclosure, right? So from this point, we know that when a financial information is disclosed, earlier we've seen that the 10K report is 150 pages almost, right? So there are a lot of information in it, a lot of numbers in it, right? And on top of that, there may be many companies, many periods we need to compare. So we're potentially looking at a huge set of data that we have to extract meaning from. Not only that, okay, let's take a look at the company's internal performance, right? There are even larger number. People are buying different goods, companies that different product that our company produce, and there are different vendors, right? Different time of transaction happens. So the accounting function now, not only we collect those accounting informations, accounting transactions, now we are seeing that we have the responsibility to analyze those data effectively, right? To tell the management, right, what is happening with the company. Okay, so that is what we call data analytic tasks. And in accounting, now the data analytics is becoming more and more important because we just simply collecting so much information, right? For us to compare, for us to find a pattern, right? And then from audit perspective too, in the old days, when we look at audit, we used to have the stuck on the idea of materiality, okay, sampling. But nowadays, audit can be done very differently. We are able to look at the company's entire transaction instead of just select a few, right? Because with the help of database, XBRL, right, we are able to look into the detail of the transaction or find out the pattern of certain transactions very easily, right? So that's why data analytic is getting so much attention, right? From not just the business in the community, but also on the accounting itself. Because why? Because usually the numbers people use to do their data analytic tasks, they are accounting numbers, right? Okay, so who is the best positioned in understanding, collecting, right? Okay, interpreting those accounting numbers is us, the accountants. So, for an accountant to have the data analytic technique or understanding of data analytic skill is very important. And we just been through a AACSB accreditation review, okay, from the AACSB. And one of the biggest suggestions they gave us is to have more data analytic courses to update students with a new skill set. And indeed, that's what we did. So last year, I designed 2 data analytic courses, one in 500 level, one in 800 level. And I'm not going to be teaching that because I already have my plates full teaching courses. So we actually hire a new professor to teach that 514, the data analytic fundamentals, and 814, the master level data analytic courses, and they will be offered in the fall semester. Okay, so I know a lot of you do not yet know the existence of this course because it's a brand new course, right? And has no history behind it. So it's not like you can ask other students, hey, what that class is about, who's that professor? No, it's brand new courses. But I highly recommend that courses, that because this is a skill set that people are really looking at, right? Whether the accountants are able to understand data analytics or use data analytics. So for this course, of course, we are not going to be able to understand data analytics in a short amount of time, right? So instead of what we will do is give you an overlook of what data analytics does in accounting and what's the potential pitfall, right, of data analytics, right? So then when you eventually go on taking those data analytic courses, right, you know what you're looking at, you know what you're dealing with, right? We are not able to go in depth of data analytic, and that's not the purpose of this course. Okay, so let me just take a quick survey here. How many of you registered or for that 514 courses already? Data analytic? Any of you register for that course? No? How many of you are interested in this course? The data analytic? Oh, good. Good. Yeah. Okay, so if you're interested, make sure, right, to register that course and discuss with our area chair, right? If you're not able to get in, or if you want to know more information about the course, either Amy, the area chair, or I, okay, will be able to give you the information that you need, what is about that course, because I designed it. Right. So let's get into this data analytic course. So data analytic, what is it? It's designed as the science of examining raw data, removing the excess noise, and organize the data with the purpose of drawing conclusions for decision making. So it's not let's say a particular one software. Oh, okay, I get this one software to do data analytic. It's not like this special technology. Oh, okay, I learned this to do data analytic. No, the data analytics is actually a compilation of many things. It involves different technologies. It involves databases, computers, right? It involves techniques such as statistical analysis. It involves various applications, like some of you may have heard Tableau is one of them for visualization, right? The Microsoft Power BI is one of them. And sometimes professional data analytic tools like SAP has one, right? And SAS has one, right? And there are also more like a down-to-earth type of tools for you just to make beautiful graphics, like text bubbles, or have you guys seen those things like a text cloud? The text that's mentioned the most, the bigger, the text mentioned the fewer, that's smaller. Those are little like tools. When people use data analytics, they also always put something like that on, as if that's data analytics. That's not. That's like little Tonka car toys, of data analytics. If you go into a data analytic presentation or course, right, and the slide you see is those text cloud, or data analytic big text, something small text, it's just the time to walk out or grab a drink, that presentation is not going to be important. No. Okay. So understand this concept that data analytics is actually a compilation of many different things. So when you want to learn data analytics, you have got to have the understanding. There's a lot involved in it. So when it comes to tools, there can be quite a few of them. Right? We start with something we call the regression analysis. Right? Just like when you learned about linear algebra or algebra, right? Or quadratic functions in your high school years, right? Regression analysis is kind of like that. And there are also what we call data mining, to mine a large set of data to find hidden patterns. There are also, we call text mining, to look at a large set of text to see how things, right? How the writer, right, are responding when they are writing certain things. There are also what we call clustering analysis. If we look at a large quantity of population or large number of transactions, do they cluster in a small area because they share certain similar features, okay, or similar characteristics, right? Like for example, in audit, we may want to use cluster analysis to figure out if certain transactions, right, they are okay manipulated in certain ways, or because they share certain characteristic, therefore they cluster together, right? So that's what clustering analysis is. And then the last thing that is a big buzzword that we see all the time is called the big data analysis, right? What is big data analysis? These are the tools that we generally use when it comes to data analytics. We're going to go through them one by one to see what they are. So regression analysis, this is what they look like. Okay, so usually you have data points here and there, right? So regression analysis is for us to draw a line, a function line, right, that cut across all these data points, right? So we have a function, and let's see, let me put this, where is my whiteboard? All right, got my whiteboard. Okay, let me see. Yeah, okay. Pen. Give me a second. Let me find my pen. Okay, so we can create a function, let's say y equals to a alpha is the intercept plus beta 1 x1, beta 2 x2, beta 3 x3 plus epsilon, the error term. So what is this? Is, let's say, for example, your wage can equals to an alpha intercept plus your age. Okay, let's do it this way instead. Your beta 1 coefficient times age plus beta 2 coefficient times, let's say, what? Education, right? Plus beta 3. What else does impact your wage? Age, education, what else? Would you say gender? Does gender count? You shouldn't, right? Who knows? What else? What other variable would you say will impact on your wage? So we have age, education. Well, how many of you think of your looks? Does your look impact your wage? How many of you think the potential looks impact your wage? Yeah, it's very sad, but this is a hidden thing, right? In the many society, like so far in the a lot of my Chinese friend told me that right now for Chinese the formula to success is you got the 3 highs, right? Those 3 highs are your height, you got to be tall, right? And your salary is high, and your looks, if you, whether you're handsome, you are like so you see some people, they are tall and handsome but they have no money, right? They are this area, right? Some people have money and they're very tall, but they're ugly. They're over here, right? So you got to have a mix of everything. You got to find someone who's here, right? The intersect of these three. They're very rich, very tall, and very handsome, right? So they can be right here. Or otherwise, you can be like something like here, this area over here. So you have your area number one. What that means? You're just a tall guy with no money and ugly. Wow. It's very sad when I look at this, right? Why you put human, right, into this kind of a way of evaluation, right? So how many Chinese guys here? Raise your hand, Chinese guys. You guys, you know what I'm talking about, right? Right. This is cruel, right? So I'm like somewhere belong to where, yeah. I'm not tall, and I don't have the looks, and I teach in university. My salary is not good, so I'm just like, I was lucky to get married to my wife actually, based on this formula. I got nothing. Yeah. All right. So the idea what I'm talking about is that we create a function, right, to determine this thing we want to find. This is called a dependent variable. The dependent variable depends on these series of variables. So we can find the expected value, right, of a wage based on this formula we defined. So similar things that we have discussed earlier, right? So if we want to create a function, let's say thinking about a company's performance, right? Deciding company's income, deciding company's performance, deciding some components, potential sales, we can indeed come up a function like that. But the problem is, where do we define these variables? See, it's hard enough when we determine a wage, right? We have to find these variables. We just come up to age and education and a bunch of others we don't even know whether they are relevant or not. Like this, height, right? The looks and wealth. We don't know, right? So same thing here. So we say the problem with the data regression analysis, we need to first create a model over here, okay, that identify the dependent variable and the independent variable, right, in order to find that what we call the beta coefficient, right? Beta coefficient, beta coefficient. Therefore, when we have a function like this, the line over here, right, on this functional line, then we can see, okay, this is what the function line look like. If you put all this variable together, then we can probably get this expected value. But the problem with this kind of function line is sometimes we know that this line may be actually not a straight line, maybe a curved line, right? And with this curved line, there may be some areas, right, they cluster together, right? So with this issue is that sometimes that we need to first create a model, and second, we need to measure all the variables that we collect, right? We need to like, for example, age and education, we need to properly collect all of them, right? And it can be potentially difficult. And third one is that the failure to correctly find those variables, either, okay, we omitted one, right? Let's say we put together wage formula, but we omitted the potentially very important variable, right? Let's say the location where you are, right? Because location is a big factor deciding your wage, whether you live in inner city in San Francisco or you live in Georgia, right? Has a huge impact of your potential wage, right? And that will give us a result that is not a biased result or misleading result or a function that actually does not capture what you're trying to do. So that's the problem with data, or we use regression analysis, right? It has a lot of work gone into first build a right formula, and then to capture the variables And not only capture those variables, we have to measure them properly as well. So that's regression analysis. Right. Okay, let me go back. Whiteboard. Okay. Next, we have something we call data mining. So what data mining is a technique that when we look at a huge set of data, right, and we treat those data as, let's say, mines, as things that we can find. So when it comes to data mining, the task is we're trying to find a hidden pattern, right, inside the data that we previously did not observe before. If you compare data mining and regression analysis, that's the biggest difference. Data mining said, I don't know the formula. I don't know what makes better salary, what makes somebody make more money. I don't know. There's just a lot of people there. Some people make more money, some people make less money. So the data mining approach is that I assume nothing. I just go there to find if there is a pattern that link, right, certain things together. Oh, okay, look at this, all the people living in San Francisco, they make a lot of money. Then we find, okay, there's perhaps a pattern, okay, in people's job sector, the place they live, right? Okay, or they link something, or people who actually live in San Francisco and work in San Francisco, they make the most. Or people who move outside from San Francisco, things like that. So one of the most interesting examples when it comes to data mining is actually a story when we talk about in the early days of data mining. It's called beer and diaper. Okay, so in the early days of data mining, when actually Walmart is the one use a lot of data mining in the early days in the 80s. So they just got something interesting phenomenon, right? So they started put together the beer very close to the diaper section. Why is that? Because from the data mining, they figured, right? People who buy diapers usually buy beer. Why? Because who buys diapers? Dads, right? And there's nothing you want more than a six-pack. But when you're thinking about there's a whining, crying baby at home, then you just, okay, I'm gonna grab this diaper, okay, and a six-pack. And so the baby is crying and it's just like sitting on your porch and, okay, what's up, right? Okay, so that's one of the things that what data mining do. Because you see, nobody would thought about, okay, how do we increase beer sales using a formula, right? Using that formula, we never thought about that. Okay, the proximity to the diaper section may be a factor to consider to make beer sales goes up, right? But through data mining, we found there's a hidden pattern in the beer purchase, okay, and the diaper purchase. This two goes together. When diaper sales goes up, beer sales goes up. Well, what does that mean? Well, I don't know what that means. Let's just put them together, right? So this is a fairly easy example. We can see the pattern. We can see how two things related to each other. But if you run large set of data mining operations, there are a lot of patterns that you discover. You just have no idea why, right? You just go with your guts and okay, this is what data is telling me that these two goes together very well, right? So that's put them together, right? So that's what data mining is. And also data mining right now is heavily used in IRS. If you're interested in looking at these two articles here, that basically tells you how IRS use data mining, right? So how many of you did the tax filing, the VITA? VITA? Some of you did VITA, right? So one thing when you file taxes, did you notice one thing? That you have to file the category of your job, right? The category of your of the tax filer's career, right? What kind of category of job this is. And there are one of the things that see, because what IRS find out that if you are a car mechanic, you file your tax return in certain pattern, right? Your proportion of your expenses to your income follows certain pattern, right? So if something that say, oh, you claim as a car mechanic, but your tax filing pattern does not match what car mechanics files taxes, right? Why, as a car mechanic, you have so much expenses? Why, as a car mechanic, that your income pattern is so different than other people? There must be something fishy, right? Okay, right. So IRS actually does a lot of that. Use the data mining to find tax cheat, potential tax fraud, or even money laundering operations, right? So there's some, there's a side story, but about money laundering and the taxi industry. They actually use data mining to find certain taxi operations that are rogue taxi operations. They are not actually running people taxi. They are just reporting this income to launder the money by taxi operation. Because if you think about it, gamble, casino, right, taxi, right, these kind of industries are set up perfectly for money laundering operations. Some people thought that, like, for example, like a nail salon, because they always take cash, but nail salon is pretty difficult to do money laundering because you see, you have to buy certain equipment, hire certain people to do, right, to do those nails. You only a certain capacity, right? But for taxi operations, it's very different. You just set up heads. Okay, I claim as a taxi driver, but actually I'm just a guy, an enforcer working for a certain mob. But on my tax file return, I'm a taxi driver, right? I get money as if I have driven, but actually I didn't drive at all. It's all money laundering from drug operations, right? So instead of getting paid as an enforcer, I get paid as a taxi driver, right? And all those money as if I come in as I actually driven a taxi. There's a huge story in this, and you're interested in, Google it, the taxi company and the money laundering operation, and they actually use data mining technique to find the pattern why these kind of taxi operations are likely to be a racketeering operation for the mobsters. An art of text mining is what we call data mining. We call text mining. We use text as data. So usually how text mining work is, for example, we text mine customer reviews to find what customers are thinking, what customers are saying in association with. If customers think this is good, right? Oh, the iPhone is good. Why do they say good? What do they mention, right, in their review? We also use text mining in, like, for example, the financial analyst report. Financial analysts say Tesla is good, but how good are they? How confident are they? Okay, so those are text mining. When you look a huge set of text, how do you extract meaning out of it? So this graph here, you can't really see, but I can explain to you. This is a text mining on Donald Trump's speech pattern. Okay, so what the text mining result find out is Donald Trump's world is black and white, right? He used very clear-cut words to describe the things he likes over here, the bottom here, and the things he doesn't like. It's very, very clear-cut. There's nothing in between, okay? Very few people actually speak like that. We understand the world that is a shades of gray, but in Donald Trump's world, it's not like that, right? It's black or white. And he used those very exaggerated words on either side. He either exaggerately to emphasize how good something is, or exactly to describe something how bad it is. And these two worlds, they don't intersect. That's what the interesting pattern of Mr. Trump's speech. And it works very well, really amazingly well, because the people who liked him never betrayed him, right? Even though, right, most of our students in San Francisco probably do not agree with Donald Trump, but if you understand that this person still have 40% of approval rating, that if you see 5 person walk on the street, 2 of them actually support Mr. Trump, right? Because that's his polarizing personality, as you can see scientifically from his speech pattern, right? Tremendous something, This is something is a disgrace. Something is what very clear cut, quite interesting. Okay, so clustering analysis. What we're looking at clustering analysis is something look like that. A bunch of data, right? And we know that they cluster together over here. We can visually ascertain that they can be cluster 1, cluster 2, and cluster 3. Okay, so clustering analysis, we see from simply scattered data everywhere, right? That's determining how did they group, right? Okay, so this can be used in the identify behavioral pattern, to identify certain like characteristics. But you may think that, oh, this is easy. I can do that in my sleep. It's just, okay, this close together, these are close together. But understand that what we're looking at is a two-dimensional data pattern, right? Okay, but if you look at the larger set of data, okay, so earlier we talked about, right, that's the Chinese cruel way of evaluating man. You have your wealth, your looks, and your height, right? So if we look at these 3 variables, so potentially we are looking at 3-dimensional space, right? Okay, one is height, one-dimensional is wealth, and one-dimensional is look, right? So to determine how things cluster in a 3-dimensional space is not as easy as we can just draw circles like that. So if we throw in even more variables, right? Say, okay, height, wealth, and looks, plus age, plus where location you live, right? Plus your education, plus your race, plus everything together, we're getting a box that is so big that's out of 3-dimensional space that we can actually plot, right? So for that, the cluster in that multi-dimensional or multi-variable environment is so hard to determine that it's not as easy we can draw things like this, right? So usually you need a computer how to determine how they cluster together, and the way computer do that is that they calculate the space of each one of them. So the computer have to calculate the space of every data points to this one, and then every data point to next one, and every data point to the next one. So as you can see, if the data set is so big, they have to run the connection, right, the relation of each data point, right? And if you remember the probability you learned in your high school years, right? So now we are looking at a compilation of everything. Then you have to see how each one interact with each other. So it can be computationally intensive, right? If you have looking at large data set, but it's very useful. Okay. So in marketing, they use to find group of customers with a similar behavior, given a large database of customer containing their properties and buying records, like say Safeway, right? So there are so many Safeway in the entire country. Right? Okay. So does people in Georgia buy the same thing as people in San Francisco? Of course not. Right? Okay. So to determine what people are buying and what people are like, so they have a run cluster analysis to see, okay, people are actually buying these kind of things here. People are buying those kinds of things there. And on the next level, if you think about it, so when I like to use this story because it's exactly what happened. So when I moved from Canada to over here, I drove all the way from Toronto to here, 5,000 miles. Yeah, I drove in 8 days. I cut across like here, and let's say San Francisco is over here, and Canada is over here. I drove like this through the United States. Yeah, like in 8 days. I drove like those Monument Valley, with the mittens. I drove Grand Canyon. Very nice. So one of my biggest concerns is where to live in San Francisco. It's so expensive. So many areas. Where is good school, right? I want to find people like me, peaceful person, like every Canadian, very peaceful. So I ask my friends, what do I do? It's like, I don't know anybody in San Francisco. I don't know where to live. So my friend actually working in the Valley, Silicon Valley, told me that it's very easy. You know, just find where the where Whole Foods or where Trader Joe's are. Why? Right? Because as a Whole Food, as Trader Joe's, right, you want to find a cluster of people. They are likely to be your customers, right? So who are they? Tree huggers, you know, peace loving, you know, hippies, right? So apparently that's kind of like me. So that's indeed what I did. You know, I started looking for where Whole Foods are and where Trader Joe's are. So if a city have Whole Foods and Trader Joe's in relatively close proximity, I know it's probably a pretty good place for me to go because they have done all the homework of clustering analysis, analyzing where their customer might be, right? So that's marketing. And in libraries and video rentals, the clustering analysis is also used to identify certain group of people. And this was used in the FBI's operations very often. They use the libraries, books, and the video rentals to figure out cluster of people, right? And identify their likely behavior pattern using this. And nowadays, it expanded to websites, right? Google, right, is using that, right, to find a cluster of customer. What do they likely to buy? So when you go to any web page, right, you will see the ads that Google determined based on your browsing pattern, right, that you may like certain product or certain advertisement. So they give it to you, right? It's very annoying. I didn't like it. So next one is what we call the big data analysis. Big data analysis actually does not exist. It's a big myth, right? What big data analysis is. The big data analysis is just like the word said. It's just when the data is very, very big, you are running data analytic tasks in an environment with a lot of data, so large, it's big. So they call it the big data analysis. That's what it is. But they actually have three main patterns in big data analysis. We call it the 3Vs. Okay, how to make big data analysis? The volume is big. The velocity, how fast the data is coming in, right? Whether it's in batch, whether it's in real time, whether it's giving you to a stream, that's a velocity. And the variety of data, whether the data is structured data, unstructured data, video, pictures, audio, all that, okay, variety of different kinds of data. When you have a lot of these, right, that constitute as a big data analysis. That's actually what it is. They still use the technique that say data mining, text mining, right, the clustering analysis, right, and some machine learning techniques. Okay, so the 3Vs, as you can see here, we explained it a little bit over here. The volume, velocity, variety. Okay, and let's take a little bit break, and then we'll come back to take a deeper look at data analytics and the AI aspect. Right, it's quite interesting. I'm going to show you some video over here, and Ray posts something at the what? Yeah, I can hear you. Yes, I can hear you. Uh-huh. Oh, okay. Okay, good. That's fine. You know, because you just post something like experience question mark, as I was wondering. Yeah. Yeah, experience can be one of them, right? But you know, that's just an example. There can be many variables, right? Affects how your wage will be like. So let's take a break. Come back 3:45. Is that good? 3:45, and we'll get into the the remaining area of data analytic. And
キモいやろ。そんなとこで寝てる。
All right, let's come back to class. Right, so I just got this something in my email. Look at this. Okay, the CD mobile check deposit, right? So basically, you can use your phone, right, to take a picture of the check and deposit the check, right, into your checking account. So this is yet another example of an accounting information system, right? They use customer's phone as an input device to capture information on the check, right? And you scan it, okay, to deposit the check instead of requiring a customer use an ATM machine. Okay, so that's yet an example of a new AIS that we encountered. So just coming today, okay, use a phone to do that. So very likely that this is probably not the first, right? But we probably will see more of this type of service that you can use your cell phone, right, to scan documents, right, take a picture of your ID or whatnot, all that, and to do this sort of things. And some other things like this, like for example, in the real estate industry, they're also doing that as well, right? So they have now a virtual escrow service, use virtual signing, right? Use your phone and camera to do that. So that's yet another example, right, of how new technology can be incorporated into new processes, even in things area like this. Use a cell phone, okay, to capture information and deposit your check into your account. Yeah. It's quite nice, I would say. Okay, so next, let's talk about AI. AI is the next stage that we go for data analytic. Why? Because you see, when we collect so much data, right, and then we start to wonder one thing. You know, in data analytic, what we use so many tools to help us do is to give us enough information, reports, graphics, visualizations, so the human, when we look at those information, right, we can make a decision, right, based on these facts, this analysis, these reports that put together for us. But in the age of AI, it's different. How it differs? In the age of AI, the decision-making part is also hand towards the machine. Okay, not only we want you to analyze the data, and we want the machine to potentially make the decision for us, right? So that's a big giant step forward, right? Because in the data analytic, traditional sense of the data analytic, humans are still the one making those decisions, instead of, like, for example, to buy or to lease, or to whether to buy this stock or another stock, whether to approve this loans or that. Humans are making the decision. But in AI, no. We said machine should be able to learn the pattern of how a decision is made and make the same decision as well as a human does. So let's take a look at how this thing come into play and how do we teach the computer to learn certain things. And this, I want to share a TED talk with you guys. It's a very interesting TED talk. It's from Stanford, the pioneer of AI. And let's see this, share. You guys can see the video, right? Okay, I'm going to hit play and okay, you should be able to hear it as well. Do you guys hear the audio? Okay, so let's come back to our lecture. So what we're seeing right now is how computers are trained to make a certain decision, to make a determination what an image present to the computer is indeed a cat. So AI, that's how AI works. Okay, so AI does not really understand a cat until you teach the AI what cat may look like. So this is accomplished by a huge training set of data. And in ImageNet's case, they hire people from all over the world. If they see a cat picture, they say, this is a cat, this is a cat, this is a cat. And that information is designed to be the training set of data, and then let the computer learn from it. Okay, these pictures are identified cat, 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 cat. So after these series of exercise, trainings, and learnings, and the computer can finally make a decision that's similar to what human made. Okay, so that's what AI work in a way, by taking examples from the right cases. So in financial decisions, in accounting, things like that, very similar happens on a daily basis, right? So if we look at the stock market, right, why do people buy certain stock, why certain stock are sold? Is that a decision? Yes. And under what circumstances that people are buying Tesla stock or selling Tesla stock, are we able to train AI to make certain decisions? That's what the stock market is working on for many, many years when it comes to AI. And there are areas that we already have made certain improvements, like for example, loan approval. Nowadays, loan approval works very, very different than before. In the old days, loan approval worked in a way that you were taught, okay, if you want to get a loan, buy a good suit, right? Put together a nice financial statement, right? Take some, mouthwash, right? And walk into a bank looking very professional, right? Try to impress that the loan officers, the three highs that you have, right? You're good looking, you have money, you're very tall, and perhaps that the loan officers will get impressed and grant you the loan. Now it's not the case. We feed the computer millions of cases why certain loans are rejected and why certain loans are approved. And therefore the computer can make similar decisions like a human does. Okay, so behind it is just a lot of numbers, variables, that we don't know whether it can be related to a loan getting rejected or getting approved. We don't know. But we tell the computer, okay, this is a cat. Similarly to we tell the computer, this is a loan rejected. This is a loan approved. So the computer can then follow to make certain decisions. So when it comes to AI, there are a lot of areas that are being improved right now. So like, for example, this video, let me show you another one. It's also very interesting. So what we just saw, this video, is yet another type of improvements in AI now we have made nowadays. You see, behind the face, a person's facial expression is just a series of geometric data of the endpoints of between the eyes, the nose, the mouth, right? So when we feed these computer enough information, what a person who's angry may look like, who person is happy may look like, when person is lying, when person is uncertain, when person is afraid, what we look like, then if we use that to scan people's face and when people are talking, then we'll be able to tell. Use AI to make that determination, right? Oh, this person is experiencing certain emotion, right? And this kind of area is now being used by government agencies, right? Like, for example, determine whether a person is about to commit a crime. And how many of you here see the movie, the Minority Report? Minority Report? Yeah, go watch it. It's really interesting. It's like almost 20 years ago. It's still a very good movie. But the movie is based on these three, like psychic kind of prescient beings, right? They are people, they can predict the future. But nowadays, it's very similar. You can actually just by using camera to observe people to see if they are about to commit a crime or about to experience some kind of aggressive behavior, right? And use that as information as the fact to determine certain actions. And a lot of the attention right now are on China because China are experiencing this technology in the Uyghur region, the northwest region of China, that are occupied by a lot of Muslims there, because that's area is close to Central Asia, right next to the Afghanistan. So China is doing that to actively observing people and their day-to-day things they're doing and use AI in a very encroaching manner. But that's the idea of how AI are being used nowadays. And so for this type of things, we called it the automated decision system. What it does is use a rule-based system to give the computer certain rules, right? So, okay, under this certain kind of situation, you make this decision. Under this second situation, you make this decision. So AI, or what we call the neural network, right, based system, then we can use a large set of data, unrelated data, to determine certain things. Okay, so the problem is now that it is actually really happening right now. And as you can see from this Washington Post news that I can show you here. It's not popping up on my. Okay, it's coming up. So this news is about the stock market micro crash. It says that this week's stock market drop was machine-made, but the freak out that followed was entirely man-made. What it does is nowadays we use AI, right, and machine learning to learn about a day's stock market movement. You know, when the stock market closes, right, the AI, the machine start crunching the numbers to determine what is a likely move of the next day. So the next day, when the market opens and the New York Stock Exchange, the machine have already decided what stock to buy, what stock to sell. So if you look at the stock market movement, like we do in research, right, the majority of trade happens within the first minute of the stock market opens. Why? Because the machines has already crunched the number, determine what to do, right? Use AI or machine learning. And a lot of times what happens when this happens, you know, as a stockbroker, when we look at those trades, right? Machine executed the trade, right? We know that's after a night of crunching number and collection of information from the Hong Kong Stock Exchange, Tokyo Stock Exchange, the London Stock Exchange, because the world keep turning, right? So after they learn this information, that they make this series of decisions. So when the machine said, okay, sell, dump this stock, right? As a human, right, we have limited capacity to go through all the calculation that machine has go through, right? So we tend to believe, okay, this should be right, right? They have gone through so many calculations, I cannot crunch it through that. So when, in this case, that the Washington Post highlighted, is just a bug in the computer system, right? They wrongfully executed the sell trade. So the entire day, the market crashed about 15%. But actually, it was just a computer bug. Nothing in the economy that happens actually will cause a 15% drop, but it's just because that computer bug. So that's actually give us a lot of insight on this. We are getting to a period of time, an age that the decision made by the AI is yet to be a point too complicated, to the point that as a human we are fearful to challenging those numbers, right? We think that those computers made these numbers after these calculations, right? I'm not able to do that complicated math in a short amount of time, so therefore it must be correct, right? So that's one of the things that we are fearing right now, right? What if there are bugs? What if there are some hackers to intentionally manipulate certain aspect of the AI to make decisions that people will just fully believe in, right? That can be a serious problem in the future. So let's take a look at a little bit back on comparing classical and the big data approach. Okay, so we know in classical statistical analysis, right, we use, for example, like regression analysis or data mining, things like that. We use it to describe a relationship that's very good for, but it has limited predictive ability. But when it comes to data mining, right, okay, we can use it to observe hidden pattern. So the objective is for prediction. Okay, so another example of data mining in the big data environment, perhaps in the AI environment, is a project I was involved in to analyzing emergency room load. So in the hospital industry, what happens is it's very difficult to determine how many doctors, how many nurses, how many equipment and supplies or bed should be there for the emergency room, okay? Because there are a lot of factors involved in the emergency room, right? So one way of determining that in a classical data analytic approach, we will use prior year's data or prior month data to see if there's a certain trend that we can observe in an emergency room setting. But in big data's environment, no, we don't need to do that. So what we do is instead of collecting just the hospital data, we collect weather data, traffic data, event schedule, right? We collect data from everywhere. Why? Because when is people gonna use the emergency service? When there's an emergency happen, right? So if there's a certain traffic jam, right, or thunderstorm in a day, right, it may cause more accidents. Or even when there's a sports event, like for example a game in town or a marathon in town, that may lead to certain increase of requests for emergency service. So that's a good example, right? In classic approach, we only use data from the historical emergency room, right? Decision is based on actual history. But in big data approach, we use data from a variety of sources: traffic, weather, tide, sports, local event. So the decision is based on evidence of how things associates. Okay? And after from these decisions based on how evidence associate, and then we can move a step forward into the AI. If these things happens, please make this decision. So an automated decision system can be made to determine how much nurse is to be assigned a certain period of time, right? How much doctor needs to be there, how many beds need to be in reserve, right? So that's an example of how we use data analytics from a very classical approach, okay? Just using the hospital data for regression analysis, and down to the data mining approach to find association. And from the association and evidence, we move towards AI, have the decision made in an automatic way. Okay, so data analytics in the accounting, right? It can be used for buying and selling decisions, can be used for pricing decisions, can be used earlier. We already talked about loan approval, financial investment, R&D expenditures, right? Optimal stock and repurchasing point, or credit rating, or forecasting, or even financial risk assessment. Okay, these are areas has been used a lot for AI, and gradually or bit by bit, you can see these information are moved towards AI in the very near future to remove the uncertainties of human decision process. Okay, so the good part of data analytics, this is quite important, and I want you to pay attention to it. The good part is what we call the decision-based or evidence-based decision making. Okay, so in the old days, when you are looking at a lot of data, you do not have the computation power to make decisions, and usually decisions are made in a way from gut feeling, right? It's my gut feeling telling me, right? Okay, even without calculation, without report, my gut feeling telling me to do so. But in the data analytic days, no, we start moving towards what we call evidence-based decision making. So we have to acquire better understanding of the market behavior and their business context. We allow the business and government to use information people provide to reveal, right, the hidden pattern, okay, associations of different events, different data, right, different facts. Okay. But the bad part of data analytics and data mining, they can be summarized into these three important things here. First, it's called the end of theory. Okay, so the data deluge makes scientific method obsolete. Why? Because we no longer need to come up with theories why certain things behave certain ways. As long as their data behaving like that, we think, okay, yeah, just like earlier, the example we call beer and diapers, right? When there are enough data like that, instance like this happens all the time. We don't have time to understand why beer and diaper get purchased in the same time. We just take it as granted. So theory become less interesting. We only care about the phenomenon. Okay, so the end of experts is related to this end of theory. So data compels decision makers to make decisions supported by data, instead of intuition or expert opinion or mathematical model. So we don't need the expert anymore. We just need data, loads and loads of data, right? And some people could put some visualization together and tell us what to do. We don't need experts. And then the third one is by World Bank Report 2014. This is quite interesting. They called it the end of policy. Why? And at that time, the World Bank realized something, that the increased frequency with what we called evidence-based policy making and actionable information, right, in policy debate with little vision. So politicians are getting really nervous, making decisions or making progresses without data. But now I think what we experience in the United States is completely opposite. We have someone who makes decision purely on gut feeling, right? And does not really like the scientific facts behind it. Is more of this guy who can put on the show, right? I would think that World Bank Report 2014, they worried too early. You know, some people still like that old-fashioned gut feeling decision making. Yeah, they don't care about the science behind it. Okay, so the ugly part of this is that the data is becoming a resource for sale and for exploitation. So what happens in the future, or perhaps is happening right now, is that the data that we accumulate, how we do things online, right? How we purchase things, how we view, how we text, how we send out email, they are being treated as a resource for sale, right? Google is doing that. Facebook is doing that, right? So the more data being accumulated, the more privacy that we have, really. Because you see, now it's very easy to determine what a person's trait, right, is just by looking at the things that we do, the things that we say, right? You know, very soon that my friends jokingly said that everybody will have a proxy, right? Have a virtual secretary, right, on my phone to tell me what to eat, what to buy, what to read, because the AI will make a determination what I might like, right? And to the point that the AI, the proxy, can answer email for me, right? To take a picture of my face, put on a 3D model. So if my, let's say my mom-in-law called, you know, I will have my proxy answer that phone instead of me. So, you know, just talk like me. You know, I don't want to talk to him. It's happening, I think. It's happening in the very near future. Right? That's the ugly part. And also, with that accumulation of data and the computer learning of a person's behavior, there is more of a malicious, unethical, and criminal use of these data. Right? So that's what I want you to learn about data mining, from all the way from classical model to AI. And we only have about an hour and a half, so we can only give you an overview of this. But I want you to think carefully what we're doing. Do not just trust 100% into this foray into technology, because there are a lot of flaws in it. All right, so let's take another break and come back at 4:30. We'll get into our AIS. Okay. Oh, this one is sweet. So sweet. Ooh, so sweet. I like it that the inside is sweet, but the skin is sour. So if I bite the skin, it's very sour.
Do it, do it. Bite the skin.
But if I suck the juice inside, so sweet, so sweet, so sweet. Just get the water out. Oops. Okay, let's come back to class. Ooh. So today, because many of students going to have midterm, right? So we will not have a group meeting session in today, just for the students who are going to have midterm in their next session of the online classes. So I will wrap this part of the AIS section in about 30 minutes. So we will, the class, I'll let you guys go to 5 so you can go ahead and make preparation for your upcoming classes and midterms and whatnot. Okay. So, and we now going to the next segment. So this is officially after the midterm modules, we start looking into deeper into the use case analysis. So I believe most of you have already experienced the use case analysis, right? To understand how the AIS can be used. What are the use cases of the AIS to help people done their job? Okay, so we are able to describe the use of AIS in a visual form, right? Visualize to see, okay, this group of people use our AIS for this group of AIS use our people for that. And our next step is to describe those things in plain English, right? Use the word as feature. Okay, so that's indeed what we're going to do. Taking the use cases one step forward. Okay, so what are features per se? So the Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers, IEEE, is the most important institute for electronic devices or things for those gadgets and whatnot. Okay, so they define the term feature is a distinguishing characteristic of a software item, like, for example, performance, portability, or functionality. So in plain English, right, that when we ask about features, we are expecting the people to answer, right? What does your AIS do? Okay, what does it do? What function does it provide? Okay, oh, what sets it apart? Okay, it's no different than when you're talking about features of a Apple Watch. What does it do? So in use case of AIS for Apple Watch, we have a use case of people to use the watch to tell time, right? That's a valid use case, tell time, right? But in features perspective, how does it tell time, right? Oh, we have a feature that we can tell time in a digital clock format, or we can tell the time with audio, okay? We can tell time many ways. So how does it set it apart, right? So if, for example, you said, oh, our AIS has a feature to update stock inventory. How does it do that, right? Okay, maybe it's a button that on the software you click, right? Maybe it's certain things that you scan to update the stock. So in features perspective, when you have time, you can take a look at the video that I listed here, right? To describe the use cases, okay, in plain English way, what are these features? Sometimes a particular use case may have many features. For example, the use case of tell time, right? Okay, with a feature of, okay, we set the time in a way that shows the analog clock, we show the time in digital clock, we show the time in audio form, okay? We show the time differently. So those are the features per se. You don't need to go very, very deep, but as you can see here, a use case can potentially expand it into multiple different features, okay? Multiple ways to accomplish the said use cases, right? Okay, you see, the use case of this, okay, uses to, okay, inform health status, right? Or to check health status. And how does it do that? Features. Oh, in features, we're able to track our users' heart rate. We can track whether this and that happened. Okay, we can track how many steps this has taken. So that goes all into one use case, right? Track health-related information. Okay, so the allure of feature comes from that the term we call the perceived usability. Remember earlier we discussed what makes a good AIS or what makes a good software. The most important things are the two: the perceived ease of use and the perceived usability, right? Okay, so the holy grail of features is the same thing as the holy grail of perceived usability. The designers always think that the more features would make the system more useful. Okay, look at this Apple Watch, have so many features, right? So many things we can do, so many use cases, right? And if all these use cases spend to so many features that we can potentially sell, right? So adding features would enhance the perceived usability of the system of the software, right? But however, the problem is that the bad features are often designed without understanding the user's needs or user's individual ability. You are making this whole little thing way too complicated. People find it hard to use. People find it unnecessary, right? So the perceived ease of use could take a secondary role when designers are only motivated to add more features onto the system, okay? And this is always a valid concern, right? How many features do you want to add it onto your AIS in the first stage? If you add too many features, when people will get rejected, it's like it's too many things for me to learn, right? I don't want to learn so many features. Each feature you need to provide a user manual. Each feature is likely you're gonna have like graphic designers to design the user interface for it, a button to click, right? And then a different area for people to train. Okay, so the ease of use can take a beating, right? If you only focus on the perceived usability or adding features. But people still doing that. Why? Because you see, there are several motivations behind adding features. The first one, we call it, if you build it, they will come. The concept is behind is that you build it first, put it in there, let the users figure them out later. Okay? And so the thing is about Apple Watch is quite interesting is that, yes, it is very useful, it has a lot of features, but it doesn't feel like something that Steve Jobs would do. Yeah, because Steve Jobs he has a very defining characteristic about what he wants. It's something simple, elegant, easy to use, right? People want just that one thing. He doesn't care about options, right? If you go through his interview that we went through the other day, he actually said the one thing that he regretted most that his return to Apple, right? The thing he regretted most is to make the gel iMac, the iMac gel, jelly version. When you're a kid, you remember that little computer looked like jelly, right? He said his single regret was to make many color options. He didn't want that. Just one color. That's all he want. One of the best color. So there's no confusion. There's no like cognitive load. It's like think, oh, I like this color. No, I like that color. No. If he decide on a color, that's gonna be the best color Apple can provide. That's his whole thing. But you look at Apple's the operations changing. It's like iPhone have like iPhone Max, iPhone Max Pro, and iPhone SE. It's become really confusing, right? I don't know, maybe some people have a different paradigm, but I think that the paradigm that Steve Jobs uphold to is dying, right? It may not be a bad thing. It may be a necessary step, but I think that thing that the professionalism and that the quest for something, that single one thing that is what he thinks is the best, and he would die for that thing that is best. I think that's what I'm missing the most, right? And a lot of people see that in Tesla. Okay, I don't care about what you think, but the Cybertruck is going to be the best, right? That's his attitude. I don't care what you think. This is what I think is the best, and I'm going to die for it, right? Okay, so people still appreciate that passion instead of like tiptoeing, maybe this, maybe that, maybe Pro Max, a Pro, and SE. Yeah, that's quite interesting thing about it. Right. So the other one is what we call the get more done in one place. You hear that all the time. Oh, you can get more done in one place. Right. So you start getting an accounting information system software that you can do email, you can do chat, you can do whatever in it. Right. And that usually because there's a relatively low development cost of adding features because the open source community, they allow us to add in certain features quite easily nowadays, usually free of cost. But the problem that we do not see is this: if you add more features, usually there's more added support cost, more added in the future, you'll have more things to update, more things to track if they conflict. And the hidden meaning behind it is usually the billing sales consideration. If you add more feature to your AIS, you can potentially ask for a bigger budget, right, if it is an internal AIS, or you can perhaps asking your customer to pay more for your AIS, right? So a feature-rich environment may become something like this. Microsoft Word. So feature-rich to the point that it becomes cumbersome. Right? If you put all the features that you can use over here, right? And then the actual use cases of writing a document become clouded, right? By all these miscellaneous features that we do. So when you think about feature of Microsoft Word, is the one thing that's really sad, is that the use case of Microsoft is what? To write well, right? To write something that looks good, right? But over this long period of time, Microsoft has always been thinking about adding new different features, but did not think about what the original use case of Microsoft Word really is. So a lot of times that this has taken advantage by other software. Like for example, right? Microsoft is very, very late on the game of collaboration. So Google Docs, now people want to not just write, I want to write collaboratively, right? I want people to real-time comment on my things. And also, I want to write well, right? Microsoft, the grammar check is so outdated. It hasn't changed, right? For 15 years. And so now Grammarly is taking a big chunk, okay, of Microsoft. People are abandoning Microsoft for Google Doc or for Grammarly. Why? Because that's the actual use case they care. I want to write well, right? I don't care all about all this to put the Excel in it, put the table in it, right? To do this and to do that. No, just let me write and write well, right? So they miss out quite a bit, right? And for me, I have to use Microsoft because it's a common format that almost everybody have. But gradually you will see if I really want to write something, I won't write on Microsoft. I will write somewhere else, right? For better way to get my writings done, right? This is bad. So to understand feature, we understand the term feature creep, right? Feature creep, sometimes we call featureism, or a term called the feature writers. This is a very, very common phenomenon of almost all Microsoft product. They just keep adding features on it. Why? Because they want to justify the existence of a particular team, or your team is to design to put a new feature in it, right? Adding more new feature to make it more attractive, right? So featureism or featureitis is the excessive ongoing expansion or addition of new features in the product, right? Especially in the computer software or electronics. And these extra features usually go beyond the basic use cases and can result in the software that's bloat or overcomplicated, okay? And rather than just a simple design, okay? So in other words, feature must be based on a valid use case, okay? So if you want to add features, right, think about it, always go back to the use case, right? Where is it in a use case that will support this feature? Do we really need it? Does the user really need it? If we add this feature in, where's the use case of this feature, right? So more is not necessarily better. Feature can lead to bloatware, unwanted features, right? Or crapware, user experience damaged by poorly designed, uncertified feature applications, or abandonware that system actually fell into disuse. I don't want to use it anymore, right? Due to too few legitimate use cases, right? So earlier I gave the example of Microsoft Word. Okay, so my use case right now is I want to write collaboratively, okay? And I want to be able to write well, right? Okay, in the same time. So that's my true intent, my use case, right? So if I want to do this in a Microsoft environment, I found it very cumbersome. There are too many features that I don't need, and the feature are in there doesn't necessarily help me write well, right? So I abandoned that and moved to other platform, right? So that's one of the case. So what are the potential hidden costs of features? We talked briefly, but we can take a look at here. The support costs, the system resources such as processing power, disk space, memory usage, the documentation cost, the training cost, the cost to implement additional security controls. Okay, with more features, there are more added security risks and complication in updating or patching bugs and errors, or then this one is a potential rejection from the users. Right? So we don't need to take a look at this. In general system, the core feature only covers these things: the user management, the data file management, and module package management. And in AIS, the core features covers where do you collect the information, how do you process it, and how do you report it. That's the core feature of AIS. It's the same everywhere, right? The AIS always focus on this. How do we get accounting data? How do I process the accounting data? And where do I get this accounting data out to? That's the three area every accounting information system focuses on. Okay, so with regards to adding or removing or managing features, these are the things that we usually take a look. Once in a while, we will conduct a feature audit, okay, for all the AIS features to see what is being used, what's being liked, and what's being not liked. Okay, so we will conduct like user studies, okay, or vulnerability assessment or system check to see what features are causing problem, okay, what features are not being used, right? Once the problems are identified, okay, usually the problem have to be made crystal clear to all stakeholders. Okay, these certain features, right, are not working because of this, because of what, right? So then we validate the concept and idea, go through user studies, and perhaps sometimes go back to the use case analysis and then to propose the change. So when it comes to adding features or removing features, it's not just something as simple as, oh, because we can do it, let's do it. No, it has always go back to the use case analysis to make sure that the concept is validated through user studies or the use cases. Okay, so the feature design principles must be supported by use cases And usually the KISS principle is quite nice. Just keep it short and simple. Don't overcomplicate it. And try to minimize the cognitive load. The cognitive load is something that to encourage people to think, to make the user think as little as possible. It's not treating the users as idiots. No, that's totally different things. It's like when you are using this software or using this feature, you don't need additional thinking to do that, right? So for example, this can glean into how do we do understand is through the cars, voice activation feature in cars, right? A lot of cars try to add this feature, talk to your car, right? Activate certain features, but it never took off. Why? Because when you're driving and you have people behind you, you have loud kids, and now you're thinking about what do I have to say to the car in order to do certain things, right? So that's what we call the additional cognitive load, right? You have to think, just what do I have to tell the car to do? How do I construct the sentence? It becomes an unnecessary cognitive load, right? That is, we consider no, not necessary. So when it comes to this cognitive load, it's quite important. If we think about Tesla, a lot of people criticize Tesla's panel, that the display panel. It adds cognitive load because there's no actual button. The physical button you can feel, that's always in that place. You say, oh, volume up, you just go reach and go volume up. But with Tesla's, it's just a big tablet, right? You have to swipe, you have to find the page, the right place and control the volume or control the air conditioner, right? And that add the cognitive load when the person is driving. But good thing about it is that the Tesla is safe to the point that the car is going to trouble, the car will correct the course itself, will slow down. So even though there's additional cognitive load, right, there's a potential balancing for that, right? That's one thing that we can say. How many people here, let me ask, how many people actually like the Cybertruck? Anybody here like Cybertruck? No? Oh, okay. Gaurav likes Cybertruck. You want to get one? Who else? I'm very likely to get one. No, it's just, yeah, I just love that thing. You know, it's just really different. It's really different. Yeah. I actually believe in that that Cybertruck thing. Okay. So with regards to your features list, right, there's a step. Okay. The first step is to analyze the use cases, understand what features user need in order to complete their actions within the system. So when you look at the use cases, okay, do this, do that. Think, you know, how do you describe it as a feature? Okay. And then list the feature in descriptive term based on the use cases. Track raw material usage, send a monthly financial report to management. Okay, so these are what we call features based on the use cases, right? So create a feature list and provide a description to each feature, okay? And track the feature back to use cases and from use cases, track all use cases to the features. Okay, so what you do is provide a table form. Let me get you that table form over here. Workshop video. Okay, where's my white pad? All right, it is. So all you need to do in feature list is create a table. Right, maybe a feature number 1, feature number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, number, and the feature name. Feature name number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. Feature description, what does this feature do? Right, and then use case reference. So what happens with the feature list? is usually people go back to their use cases and number those use cases, like use case A, use case B, use case C, right? So you can make that reference. Oh, this features goes with the use case A, these features goes with use case B, right? Okay, so you can think quite intuitively. The most basic features are just the original use cases, right? That's the most basic. The features must have enough features to cover the basic use cases. But as we know, most of the time, one use case will extend to multiple features, right? So maybe this is all you go use to case A, use case B, use case B. And so another way for you to think about this is think of, earlier we talked about the core features of AIS, right? The input, process, and output. You can think in terms of this way. What are the features that governs the input of accounting information? What are the features of process the accounting information? What are the features to generate output or to handle output? These are usually the way to think about it. It's not very hard. Just go from the use case and list the features that you need. Right? So from this feature over here, you can tell the stakeholder what does your AIS actually do. Oh, our AIS has this feature, that feature, that feature, that feature, that feature. And because of this feature, our employees can do this and do that. X, Y, Z. Right? Okay. Right? Okay, so far so good? Question? It's not very hard. Don't overthink about it. Right? The lecture of this AIS project, right? The purpose of it is for you to understand what features are, or like last class, we understand what users are and what use case is. The actual building part is, because it's a sandbox project, so it's very easy. You just think out loud, right? Okay. But the important thing for you is to understand how features came about and how oversaturated the feature can cause problems. So in the future, when you start dealing with real cases, you know, right? Okay, the potential pitfall to avoid. All right, so that's it for today's class. So if you have other exams to take care of, this is a good time. If you don't, then you could get together with your group and in other way, but for me, officially, I'm shutting the class so I can go ahead and prepare the midterm for my next class. And have a nice midterm. See you on Thursday. Bye.